with Ashish Khanna, Programme Leader at the World Bank. Ashish, thank you very much for joining us today. What are the World Bank's priorities here in Egypt?
Thank you. So we have our global goals of eliminating extreme poverty and increasing shared prosperity. Within that ambit, we have a country partnership framework where we work with a homegrown program of Egypt, looking at, I would say broadly, two pillars. The first pillar is on how can Egypt transition into a private sector law-led job creation by removing all the policy distortions. And we had a flagship 3.15 billion program that enhanced fiscal consolidation, ensured energy security, and brought in a lot of legislative reforms of private sector competitiveness. To give you a very brief idea, $14 billion worth of energy subsidy savings have happened in this country over the last 4 years, and they are being redirected from being used by rich people, because 70% of them were being used by the richest 20%, to now the poorest people through cash transfer programs, which have been doubled in this budget. The second broad pillar that we work is on improving human capital, because people are the biggest asset of any nation. And in a world of disruptive technology and a lot of transition, we are now working with the government of Egypt, and they have a complete separate access as part of the new government of building Egyptian citizen. We have 3 programs there. The first program is on improving the health outcomes. Egypt has a very big problem of hepatitis C. More than 35 million Egyptians would be screened, and 1.5 million Egyptians would be treated by hepatitis C, and all the institutional infrastructure of primary healthcare providers would improve. Then we are doing a 500 million operation on education, where 500,000 students, 500,000 teachers are going to be trained, and 1.5 million of them will get digital skills that are going to be important for the jobs of tomorrow. And finally, in this transition, the marginalized have to be protected. So we have a very large social protection program of identifying the poor and needy and making sure they are protected.
Thank you. Are your programs making a real difference to ordinary Egyptians, and are they feeling this?
Yes, I think that's a critical question, because we are held accountable to our board on have we managed the results of all our operations. So I would say I told you about the big policy actions that we did, because of which the rate of growth is very high, and the macroeconomic. But I will go a little bit more, because it's about ordinary Egyptians. Let me tell you about 2 sets of parameters. The first is, what have we really done on protection of the poor and marginalized? Almost 10 million individuals now receive a targeted cash transfer program. 70% of them are below the poverty line, and 88% of them are women. Similarly, almost 150,000 small and medium enterprises, 1/3 of them are in lagging regions. Women and youth are now receiving access of finance from our side. More than 300,000 people have received a natural gas connection. More than 100,000 people have received a water connection. And 25 million work days have been generated for the small and marginal people for job employment. But this is about social protection. What about the hope, which is going to be about jobs? I'm very pleased to report that just in last 2 years of reforms, the number of licenses that are now being issued for industry have gone up 5 times. The number of construction permits twice, and the number of actual companies that are being registered in Egypt have doubled on an annual basis over the last 3 years. So I think these are the set of parameters.
And what can other countries learn from your programs in Egypt?
So, you know, when our last operation went to the board, which is all 184 countries, we were very pleased that all of them took that operation and a strategy as a benchmark for the world. Why? Let me give you 2 aspects. What we are trying to do is that for any sustainable change in development trajectory of a country requires changes on the country context, which is the tax rate, exchange rates, sector context, what are the new laws, financial turnaround strategies, and the project context. And in Egypt, we make sure that we are not only working on the project context, which takes out the sector and the country story, or just focus on the country story without seeing the fruits on the ground. The second is how we work together as an institution. This is a benchmark case within World Bank Group of how World Bank on the government side, IFC on the private sector side, and MIGA on the guarantee side have worked together for World Bank to unlock the reforms and all the policies for renewable energy. IFC stepping in with EBRD to making sure all the contracts have the right risk mitigation and financing gets done, $2 billion. But because investors had a risk of their equity, MIGA stepped in to provide equity. So we had a composite program where entire World Bank Group brought together, and we are being told to actually replicate this across other countries.
There's a lot of work and a lot of stakeholders involved as well. Ashish, let me just ask you a couple of questions about the conference. Sure. Are you enjoying the Euromoney conference so far?
Absolutely. I have to say, right from my school days and the college days, Euromoney was one of the magazines and the events. It's an international event. It's great to have all the international and national important stakeholders see them and discuss important issues.
And why do you come to speak at the Euromoney event?
I would say it's largely due to the credibility of the name and the institution. Egypt is a very important juncture, and it's important with the credible name of Euromoney. We all come together to share our experience and thoughts.
Ashish, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.